In the year 1944, the world was engulfed in the throes of World War II, a conflict of unprecedented scale that stretched across continents and oceans. As battles raged in Europe and the Pacific, the United States, a major Allied power, faced a unique challenge on its own soil: the management and housing of German prisoners of war, POWs. The presence of these POWs was a direct consequence of the military engagements overseas, where the Allies captured thousands of Axis soldiers. As these prisoners were transported across the Atlantic, the U.S. found itself in a position where it needed to accommodate them, leading to the establishment of numerous POW camps across the country. One such camp, located in the remote expanses of Idaho, was Camp Rupert. Camp Rupert, set against the rugged landscapes of Idaho near the small town of Minidoka, became a focal point for both military logistics and the local civilian economy. Established in 1943, this camp was designed with a capacity to house up to 3,000 German POWs. The camp's layout was meticulously planned, featuring rows of barracks where the prisoners lived, along with administrative buildings that housed the military personnel and offices necessary for the camp's operation. Recreation areas were also included within the camp's perimeter, providing the POWs with some semblance of normalcy during their captivity. The entire facility was encircled by barbed wire fencing, with guard towers strategically placed to maintain surveillance and security. The task of ensuring order and security within Camp Rupert fell to the 770th Military Police Battalion, a unit whose presence underscored the seriousness with which the U.S. military approached the management of POWs. The utilization of POW labor was a strategic decision by the U.S. War Department, driven by the pressing need to address labor shortages exacerbated by the war. With a significant portion of the American workforce enlisted in the military or engaged in war-related industries, the domestic economy faced challenges in maintaining production levels, particularly in agriculture and other critical sectors. The Geneva Convention, which governed the treatment of POWs, allowed for their labor under specific conditions, provided the work was not directly related to the war effort. This provision opened the door for POWs to be employed in various civilian industries. At Camp Rupert, the majority of the POWs found themselves participating in agricultural work, a sector of paramount importance in Idaho's economy. These prisoners were transported to nearby farms, where they took part in harvesting crops such as sugar beets and potatoes, thus supplementing the local labor force. The logistics of employing POW labor were meticulously documented in records maintained by the U.S. Army Provost Marshal General. Every agricultural contract was carefully detailed, and the system ensured that POWs received compensation for their labor. However, instead of monetary payment, they were awarded credits that could be used within the camp's canteen. This system was part of a broader rationing strategy that allowed prisoners to purchase additional food and personal items, thereby enhancing their quality of life during captivity. The camp's food system was another area where stringent standards were maintained. Adhering to both U.S. military guidelines and the requirements of the Geneva Convention, the camp provided a balanced diet that included fresh produce, dairy, and meat, ensuring the POWs were well nourished. Civilian attitudes towards the German POWs housed at Camp Rupert varied widely. Some locals viewed the prisoners with apprehension, a sentiment fueled by the ongoing conflict and wartime propaganda. Others, however, adopted a more pragmatic stance, recognizing the practical benefits of utilizing POW labor to address local labor shortages. The presence of POWs occasionally made headlines in local newspapers, which reported on incidents involving the prisoners, though serious disciplinary issues were rare. To ensure compliance with international standards, the Red Cross conducted regular inspections of the camp. Their reports consistently indicated that discipline within Camp Rupert was well maintained, largely due to a combination of military oversight and the self-governance practiced by the prisoners themselves. The POWs at Camp Rupert were afforded access to a range of services and programs aimed at maintaining their well-being and preparing them for eventual repatriation. Medical care was available to address health concerns, while mail services allowed prisoners to maintain contact with their families back in Germany. Educational programs, often facilitated by organizations such as the YMCA, provided opportunities for learning and personal development. These programs included language classes and vocational training, reflecting an effort to equip the POWs with skills that would be valuable upon their return to post-war Germany. One particularly intriguing incident in 1944 involved the auctioning of government property in a nearby Idaho town. A group of POWs from Camp Rupert, assigned to repaint municipal equipment, observed the auction. This event was part of the state's initiative to liquidate assets transparently, as detailed in transportation logs and auction records. Decommissioned vehicles and tools were put on display for public inspection, with maintenance logs and receipts made available to potential buyers. The auction attracted local citizens who placed bids on the items, and the winning bids were publicly recorded to ensure transparency and avoid favoritism. While the POWs were not directly involved in the bidding process, their role in preparing the equipment for sale highlighted the interconnectedness of wartime systems and the multifaceted contributions of POW labor to the American economy. As the war drew to a close, the focus shifted to the repatriation of German POWs. The U.S. implemented structured programs aimed at repatriating and re-educating these prisoners. These initiatives, outlined in post-war directives, sought to dismantle the ideological frameworks the POWs had acquired during the war. Rather than resorting to overt indoctrination, the programs emphasized exposure to democratic systems and values. Educational programs within the camps, combined with the POWs' interactions with American society, were designed to facilitate a smoother reintegration into post-war Germany. In this broader context, the experiences at Camp Rupert and the nearby auction serve as a microcosm of the wartime experience in the United States. The systems and structures in place, from labor logistics to civilian economic activities, reveal the intricate balance between military necessity and civilian life during a period of global conflict. The presence of German POWs in Idaho, their contributions to the local economy, and the community's response to their presence all reflect the complex dynamics at play in the United States during World War II. These interactions, underpinned by a framework of international law and humanitarian considerations, offer a unique perspective on the ways in which war can reshape societies, economies, and individual lives. The government auction held in the nearby Idaho town unfolded against a backdrop of eager anticipation, drawing a diverse crowd that included local townspeople and curious onlookers from neighboring areas. Among them was a select group of German prisoners of war, POWs, who had been escorted from Camp Rupert under the watchful eyes of guards from the 770th Military Police Battalion. The auction was an essential measure, organized under the auspices of the War Assets Administration, aimed at liquidating decommissioned military vehicles and equipment that had become surplus as World War II neared its conclusion. This public event was not just a matter of selling off military surplus, it was a testament to the democratic principles that the United States sought to uphold, even amidst the exigencies of global conflict. It demonstrated a commitment to transparency and accountability in government dealings, ensuring that the public remained informed and involved in the redistribution of state resources. The presence of the German POWs at the auction was a reflection of the pragmatic approach taken by camp authorities. These men, once soldiers of the Axis powers, were now engaged in labor deemed beneficial to the Allied war effort, all within the boundaries set by the Geneva Convention. Their task was to repaint and refurbish the equipment prior to its sale, ensuring that each piece was presented in optimal condition for prospective buyers. This work was meticulously supervised to maintain high standards, not only to ensure the quality of the equipment, but also to adhere to the principles of fair labor practices. The POW's contribution, though indirect, played a significant role in the success of the auction. It underscored a complex reality. Even those held in captivity could be woven into the economic mechanisms of their captors, highlighting the interconnectedness of military and civilian life during wartime. As the auction commenced, the auctioneer, a seasoned local official known for his expertise in conducting such events, began calling out the items up for bid. His voice carried across the auction grounds, a familiar sound that commanded attention and respect. The atmosphere was one of careful scrutiny as citizens examined the maintenance logs and receipts provided for each piece of equipment. These logs, maintained with military precision, detailed the history and condition of the vehicles and tools, offering assurances to potential buyers regarding their value and functionality. Each item had a story, a history of service that added a layer of intrigue to the proceedings. The transparency of the process, with its open records and clear documentation, was an essential element, reinforcing the principles of equity and impartiality that the government sought to demonstrate in its dealings. Among the items up for auction were several decommissioned military trucks, their olive drab paint newly refreshed by the diligent work of the POWs. Once vital to military operations, these vehicles now promised potential utility to local farmers and businesses. The prospect of acquiring such assets resonated deeply with the economic needs of the community, where the challenges of wartime scarcity were keenly felt. The bidding was spirited, a lively dance of raised hands and nodding heads, as townspeople vied for the opportunity to secure these valuable resources. Each bid represented not just an economic transaction, but a step towards greater self-reliance and community resilience in the face of uncertainty. Throughout the proceedings, the German POWs observed the interactions with a mixture of detachment and interest. Their roles were limited to the preparatory work that had preceded the auction, yet the significance of their contribution was undeniable. The quality of their labor influenced the presentation and perceived value of the items sold, a fact not lost on the astute bidders who appreciated the care and effort invested in the refurbishment process. For the POWs, this was a rare glimpse into civilian life, a momentary intersection of their constrained existence with the broader world of their captors. It was a reminder of the multifaceted nature of their captivity, where their labor served both practical and symbolic purposes. As the auction moved forward, attention shifted to the sale of smaller tools and equipment. These items, integral to the daily operations of military units, were now being repurposed for civilian use. Farming implements, mechanical tools, and other equipment that had once supported the war effort were now poised to bolster local industry and agriculture. The transparent nature of the auction process was evident in the public recording of winning bids, a practice that ensured accountability and fairness. This transparency was not merely procedural, it was a reflection of democratic values, a commitment to openness that inspired trust and confidence among the participants. As the day wore on and the sun began its descent towards the horizon, the auction drew to a close. The final items were sold, and the records were meticulously updated to reflect the outcomes. Townspeople departed with their acquisitions, satisfied with the process and the opportunities it presented for local economic growth. For many, the new equipment represented hope and potential, tools that would aid in the recovery and prosperity of their community. The auction had facilitated a redistribution of resources that aligned with the needs and priorities of the people, fostering a sense of resilience and adaptability amidst the uncertainties of wartime. For the German POWs, the conclusion of the auction marked a return to the routines of camp life, their temporary exposure to the civilian world a brief interlude in the larger narrative of their wartime experience. Their involvement in the auction preparation, while limited, offered insights into the societal values and systems of their captors. These experiences, though constrained by the circumstances of captivity, contributed to the broader objective of re-education and repatriation. As the war in Europe drew towards its end, thoughts turned increasingly towards the future, towards a post-war Germany that would undergo its own process of rebuilding and democratization. In the weeks following the auction, the impact of the event became increasingly apparent within the local community. The vehicles and equipment acquired by the townspeople proved invaluable in supporting agricultural production and local businesses, bolstering the economy and contributing to the war effort in a civilian capacity. Farmers used the trucks to transport goods more efficiently, while businesses found new ways to expand and innovate with the tools they had obtained. The auction had not only met immediate needs, but had also sparked a renewed sense of community spirit and cooperation, as neighbors came together to share resources and support one another. As Camp Rupert continued its operations, the experiences of the POWs and the local community during the auction became a part of the camp's historical narrative. The event exemplified the delicate balance between military oversight and civilian engagement, a theme that resonated throughout the wartime period and beyond. The auction, with its emphasis on transparency and fairness, stood as a testament to the enduring principles of democracy, offering a glimpse of hope and direction in a world marred by conflict. Ultimately, the auction at the Idaho town was more than a mere transaction of goods. It was a demonstration of how wartime America navigated the challenges of resource management and civilian involvement. It highlighted the capacity for adaptation and cooperation in the face of adversity, underscoring the interconnectedness of military and civilian spheres. Through these interactions, the community and the POWs alike participated in a shared experience that, while rooted in the constraints of war, bore the potential for mutual understanding and future reconciliation. The auction was a vivid reflection of the human spirit's resilience, a reminder that even in the darkest times, the principles of democracy and community could shine brightly, guiding the way towards a more hopeful future. The year 1944 stands as a pivotal moment in the history of the United States, marking a significant intersection between military operations and civilian life. This period was notably characterized by the presence of German prisoners of war, POWs, stationed at Camp Rupert, Idaho, amid the vast and rugged landscapes of the American West. This camp, nestled in the heart of Idaho, served as a temporary home for approximately 3,000 German soldiers captured during World War II. Under the watchful eye of the 770th Military Police Battalion, these POWs were incorporated into the local economy, primarily through agricultural labor, reflecting the exigencies of wartime and the strategic utilization of available resources. The German POWs, as mandated by the Geneva Convention, were afforded a range of standards concerning their treatment and engagement. This included not only the labor they were required to perform, but also access to educational programs, recreational activities, and medical care, providing a semblance of normalcy amidst the chaos of war. Such structured routines were instrumental in maintaining order within the camp and ensuring compliance with international norms. The presence of POWs in Idaho, working side by side with American civilians, was a unique chapter in the broader narrative of World War II, symbolizing both the strains and the subtle bridges of understanding that could form even in times of global conflict. The small Idaho town near Camp Rupert found itself intricately linked to the war effort, not just through the presence of POWs, but also through the 1944 government auction, which became a focal point for community interaction with wartime systems. This auction was emblematic of the transparency and democratic values that the United States sought to uphold, even in wartime. Decommissioned military vehicles and tools were made available to the public, and the auction process was meticulously organized to ensure equity. Winning bids were publicly recorded, preventing favoritism and fostering public trust in government operations during a period of uncertainty and upheaval. This event, while primarily an economic transaction, also reflected the broader societal values of the time. The German POWs contributed significantly to the preparatory phases of this auction. Their tasks included repainting and refurbishing municipal equipment, ensuring that the items presented for sale were in optimal condition. This involvement not only facilitated the smooth execution of the auction, but also provided the POWs with a unique vantage point from which to observe American societal norms and economic practices. Through their participation, they gained insights into the workings of a civilian economy, which stood in stark contrast to their experiences in a war-torn Europe. The auction, therefore, served as more than just a means of asset distribution. It was a conduit for cross-cultural interaction and understanding. For the citizens of the Idaho town, the auction represented an opportunity to acquire valuable assets, contributing to local economic resilience. The public nature of the auction underscored a commitment to transparency, a principle that resonated with the democratic ethos espoused by the United States during the war. For the German POWs, the event was an educational experience that subtly shifted their perceptions of the Allied forces and their systems of governance. The collaborative effort between POWs and local citizens in preparing and executing the auction symbolized a temporary alignment of interests, transcending the adversarial nature of wartime relations. This alignment, although temporary, hinted at the potential for post-war reconciliation and mutual understanding. As World War II drew to a close, attention inevitably turned to the repatriation of POWs and their reintegration into German society. The experiences at Camp Rupert, including participation in the auction, prepared these individuals for a complex transition. The skills and insights they gained during their captivity were expected to have lasting impacts on their post-war lives, influencing their perceptions of democracy, governance, and international relations. The long-term impact of these experiences on post-war German-American relations remained a topic of contemplation. Although the extent to which POW contributions to the American economy would shape bilateral interactions in the ensuing decades was uncertain, the auction served as a microcosm of wartime cooperation, illustrating the potential for adaptive strategies in the face of global conflict. In retrospect, the 1944 auction in the Idaho town stands as a historical marker, reflecting the interconnectedness of military and civilian spheres during World War II. It encapsulates the complex dynamics at play, where transparency, economic necessity, and human interaction converged in a unique wartime setting. The event's legacy, while subtle, is embedded in the broader narrative of wartime adaptation and the pursuit of democratic ideals amidst conflict. The meticulous documentation of the auction's proceedings, with receipts and maintenance logs providing a comprehensive account of each transaction, ensured accountability and served as a model for subsequent asset liquidations across the nation. The state's approach to liquidating surplus assets through public auctions, rather than through closed or opaque means, reinforced the principles of fairness and accessibility. The involvement of German POWs in such activities underscored the multifaceted nature of their captivity experience. Beyond their labor contributions, they engaged with American systems in a manner that was both educational and transformative. Their exposure to democratic processes, even in the context of asset liquidation, contributed to a broader understanding of American societal values. As the final chapters of World War II unfolded, the narrative of the German POWs at Camp Rupert and their interactions with the local community continued to evolve. The camp's operations, guided by the principles of the Geneva Convention and the oversight of military authorities, reflected a commitment to humane treatment and international standards. These principles, combined with the practicalities of wartime economy and governance, shaped the experiences of both POWs and local citizens. In conclusion, the 1944 auction in Idaho serves as a historical case study of wartime cooperation and adaptation. It highlights the intricate balance between military necessity and civilian involvement, illustrating how transparent processes can foster trust and mutual benefit. The legacy of this event extends beyond its immediate economic impact, offering insights into the enduring values and systems that define democratic societies in times of conflict. The auction in Idaho was not merely a wartime necessity, but a symbol of the potential for understanding and cooperation, even amidst the adversities of global conflict. As the war drew to a close, the atmosphere at Camp Rupert was one of subtle anticipation mixed with the routine of daily operations. The camp, situated in the vast expanse of Idaho's rural landscape, was more than just a temporary holding place for German prisoners of war, POWs. It was a microcosm of wartime dynamics and a place where cultural exchanges, albeit indirect, took place on a daily basis. The German POWs, who had become an integral part of the local agricultural workforce, continued to engage in their assigned tasks with a sense of duty and diligence. These tasks were not merely a means of ensuring the camp's self-sufficiency. They were practical exercises in discipline and productivity, elements that would prove essential upon their eventual return to a war-torn Germany. The POWs worked tirelessly in the fields, their hands hardened by labor and their faces weathered by the sun. They cultivated crops, tended to livestock, and managed the day-to-day operations of the camp's agricultural endeavors. Their work was a testament to their resilience and adaptability, traits that would serve them well as they prepared to rebuild their lives after the war. The agricultural activities at Camp Rupert were not only vital for sustenance, but also provided a semblance of normalcy and purpose amidst the uncertainty of wartime existence. Meanwhile, the auction of decommissioned military equipment held in the nearby Idaho town had left a lasting impression on both the POWs and the local citizens. This event, characterized by its transparent procedures and democratic ethos, acted as a conduit for cultural exchange, albeit indirect. The auction was a bustling affair, drawing crowds from miles around. Farmers, local businessmen, and curious townsfolk gathered to witness the sale of military surplus, each piece of equipment a relic of the ongoing conflict and a symbol of the transition from war to peace. As the POWs repainted and refurbished the equipment, they were afforded glimpses into the American way of life, a society built on openness and the rule of law. This was a stark contrast to the wartime secrecy that pervaded much of the world at the time. The meticulous records of each transaction, displayed openly for public scrutiny, stood as a testament to the American commitment to transparency and accountability. For the POWs, accustomed to more opaque systems, this exposure offered a fresh perspective on governance that valued civic engagement, fairness, and equality. The process of liquidating surplus government assets was systematic and thorough, reflecting a well-organized approach that emphasized efficiency and integrity. Each piece of equipment, from tractors to utility vehicles, was cataloged with precision. Maintenance logs and receipts were examined by prospective buyers, ensuring that every transaction was grounded in factual evidence and devoid of favoritism or corruption. The citizens, acting as both participants and witnesses, engaged with this process, reinforcing the sense of community involvement in governmental affairs. This transparency was not merely procedural, but emblematic of an ideological stance against the clandestine nature of war economies elsewhere. The German POWs, while primarily focused on their duties, could not help but observe the unfolding of these auctions. For many, this was the first instance of witnessing such an open display of governmental accountability. The concept of public auctions, where the highest bidder procured goods without the intervention of favoritism or corruption, was a novel experience for individuals accustomed to more opaque systems. This exposure offered them a perspective on governance that valued civic engagement and the principles of fairness and equality. Military personnel from the 770th Military Police Battalion played a crucial role in overseeing the auction process. Their presence ensured that the event proceeded without incident, maintaining order and security. Their duties extended beyond mere oversight. They acted as liaisons between the civilian authorities and the POWs, facilitating understanding and cooperation. The military police's involvement highlighted the importance of structured authority in managing the delicate balance between military and civilian interests during wartime. As the auction concluded, the items that had once served the war effort found new life within the civilian economy. Tractors, once employed for military logistics, were repurposed for agricultural use, contributing to the local food production essential for the home front. Utility vehicles, no longer needed for troop movements, now served the logistical needs of local businesses and farms. This transformation of military assets into civilian tools underscored the adaptability and resilience of the American wartime economy. The documentation of each sale, meticulously recorded and preserved, would later serve as historical evidence of the era's economic practices. These records provided insights into the local economy's capacity to absorb and repurpose military surplus, illustrating the interconnectedness of military logistics and civilian industries. The transparent nature of these transactions also reinforced public trust in governmental processes, a critical element during a time when the public's faith in institutions was paramount. As the POWs continued their work at Camp Rupert, the lessons from the auction lingered. Their exposure to American economic practices, even in this limited form, contributed to their understanding of democratic principles. This knowledge would later inform their reintegration into post-war Germany, where the ideals of transparency and accountability would become integral to rebuilding efforts. The auction served as a microcosm of the potential for reconciliation and mutual understanding, with the POWs' experiences at Camp Rupert acting as a bridge between wartime adversaries. In the months following the auction, the focus at Camp Rupert gradually shifted towards preparing the POWs for repatriation. The end of the war heralded new challenges, both logistical and emotional, as the process of returning prisoners to their homeland began in earnest. The repatriation process, governed by the stipulations of the Geneva Convention, was conducted with the same attention to detail that characterized the auction. Each POW was accounted for, their records meticulously updated to reflect their contributions during their time in captivity. The transition from wartime laborers to repatriated citizens required careful coordination. Military personnel, in conjunction with the International Red Cross, ensured that the POWs were equipped with the necessary documentation for their journey home. This included records of their labor, health assessments, and personal effects accumulated during their stay. The process was a testament to the organizational capabilities of the military and the commitment to uphold international agreements regarding the treatment and repatriation of prisoners. For the German POWs, the impending return to their homeland was met with mixed emotions. While the prospect of reuniting with family and friends was a source of joy, the uncertainty of post-war Germany loomed large. The knowledge and skills acquired at Camp Rupert, however, provided a foundation upon which they could rebuild their lives. The exposure to American systems of governance and economy, albeit indirect, offered a framework for understanding the democratic processes that would later take root in their own country. The citizens of the Idaho town, having participated in the auction and observed the POWs' contributions, developed a nuanced understanding of their erstwhile adversaries. This interaction, though limited, fostered a sense of shared humanity that transcended the divisions of war. The auction had served as a focal point for this exchange, illustrating the potential for cooperation and mutual respect in the most trying of times. In the broader context, the events at Camp Rupert and the nearby town were reflective of a larger narrative of reconciliation and reconstruction that marked the post-war period. The transition from conflict to peace required not only political and economic adjustments, but also a reevaluation of interpersonal relationships forged during the war. The auction of government property, with its emphasis on transparency and civic engagement, stood as a symbol of these evolving dynamics. As the POWs prepared to leave Camp Rupert, they carried with them the experiences and lessons of their time in captivity. The interactions with American systems and the insight into democratic processes would, in many ways, inform their perspectives in the years to come. The auction, a seemingly mundane event, had become a pivotal moment in this journey, serving as a testament to the power of transparency and cooperation in bridging the divides wrought by war. In conclusion, the auction of government property in the Idaho town, observed by German POWs, encapsulated the complexities and opportunities of wartime interactions between military and civilian spheres. It highlighted the capacity for transparency and democratic engagement to foster understanding and reconciliation, themes that would resonate well beyond the confines of Camp Rupert. As the POWs returned to Germany, the experiences gained in Idaho would leave an indelible mark, contributing to the broader narrative of post-war reconstruction and the pursuit of lasting peace. As the final curtains of World War II drew to a close, the story of Camp Rupert and its German prisoners of war, POWs, reached a definitive conclusion. The repatriation process, undertaken with precision and adherence to international protocols, ensured that each POW was returned to Germany with a documented record of their time in captivity. This process was emblematic of the meticulous standards upheld by the U.S. military, reflecting a commitment to the Geneva Convention's principles even as the world transitioned from war to peace. The experience of the German POWs at Camp Rupert, including their participation in local economic activities such as the government auction, had left an indelible impact on both the captives and the community. For the POWs, the exposure to American systems of governance and economic practices offered a unique perspective on transparency and democratic values. These insights would later inform their contributions to the rebuilding of post-war Germany, where the principles of accountability and civic engagement would become foundational to a new democratic society. In the local Idaho community, the interactions with the POWs fostered a deeper understanding of shared humanity, transcending the adversarial nature of wartime relations. The auction, with its emphasis on fairness and public participation, served as a microcosm of these evolving dynamics, illustrating the potential for cooperation and mutual respect amidst the challenges of global conflict. As the POWs departed Camp Rupert, the camp itself was gradually dismantled, its legacy preserved in the records and memories of those who had experienced its unique role during the war. The lessons learned from this period, both practical and ideological, contributed to broader post-war efforts aimed at reconciliation and reconstruction. The story of Camp Rupert and the nearby auction stands as a historical testament to the complexities of war and the potential for peace. It underscores the importance of transparency, cooperation, and understanding in navigating the challenges of conflict and rebuilding in its aftermath. As the world moved forward, the experiences of the POWs and the local community continued to resonate, offering a poignant reminder of the enduring values that can guide societies through the darkest times and towards a more hopeful future.